Welcome home, Rep Pack. Marcus here, and welcome to Comfort Cartoons, the show where I collect absolutely everything from the late 90s, 2000s, all the way to the modern day. And I'm also trying to create the world's biggest Spongebob and the world's biggest Nickelodeon collection. But not just that, the CEO and creator of this channel happens to also have some of her own company. But I hope you beautiful people are having an amazing day. This is the third part of an awesome series that so many of you guys have loved, so I can't wait to get in it. But you know the drill. SpongeBob on Disney Channel, camera flip. It's about to get a whole lot brighter, Rep Pack, because today we are going to be discussing all of the times that SpongeBob appeared or was referenced on Disney Channel or Disney in general. Also in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the live action references, besides maybe deviating a little bit on a couple. I'm going to be focusing on animation stuff because that's what we do on this channel. If you haven't seen the first two episodes of this series, I did cover all the times that SpongeBob was mentioned in other Nicktoon shows and also all the times that SpongeBob appeared in Cartoon Network shows. But many of you guys asked to cover Disney Channel, and so many people, when I mentioned that in the second video that I might do that, said there's no way that SpongeBob appeared on Disney Channel, and you were almost right. There really isn't as nearly as many as there are on Cartoon Network, or of course in any of the Nicktoon series, but there was a surprising amount, more than I expected, when it came to SpongeBob being referenced, or even almost downright appearing in some cases. But let's go ahead and get started with our first Disney property, and that is the new Rescue Rangers movie. And I thought this was a perfect one to start off with, because if you haven't seen the Rescue Rangers movie, the whole movie is basically about the cartoon world, almost like the spiritual successor to Roger Rabbit, the original cartoon real-life merger world. And the entire film is filled with a bunch of different references to other cartoons, whether they be Hanna-Barbera, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, but also SpongeBob. So one of the big ones you can see right here is actually when the characters are on Hollywood Boulevard, they actually show the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is a famous area in Hollywood, California. For a long stretch, you can see all types of different stars. I've gotten to walk there myself, and it's amazing. You get to see so many different iconic people from movies, television, radio, you name it. But when they do it in Rescue Rangers, they actually have a few cartoon characters that appear, and one of them is our main man, Squidward. So I thought that was incredible when I saw the movie. I was actually in disbelief that there was such a direct reference, because as we go through this list, you'll see there's a lot of different references to SpongeBob in some ways, but this one is just downright direct with the name of the character right there on the floor. So you can see Squidward did earn himself a star on the Walk of Fame. And I have to say, I think that Squidward would be very, very happy about that. My man has always been out there trying to find some kind of fame, whether it be through art, clarinet playing, dance, anywhere he can get some kind of exposure, he was looking for it. So it's good to see that he did make it on the cartoon Walk of Fame for being the icon he is. But before we get to the last one in Rescue Rangers, there's actually a few more that I just want to touch on because, you know, we do celebrate all things Nickelodeon on this channel. There's actually a scene where they show all the different parts that they're using from different cartoon characters in order to make overseas rip-offs of some of the amazing shows that we grew up off, and that's kind of the premise of the movie. And in the scene where they show all the parts, you can actually see a couple iconic items. You can see Jimmy Neutron's hair, you can see Ickis's ear, you can see Ickis's mouth, a bunch of other characters as well, but mostly we're talking about the Nickelodeon ones. You had Momo's ears. I'm pretty sure these are Momo's ears. I could be wrong on these, but there's also supposedly the Krusty Krab employee hat. I've seen that one be referenced online while doing some of this research, and to me it doesn't really quite look like the Krusty Krab hat. Usually the Krusty Krab hat is blue, but in some cases it does have a red outline, but not that thick to where I would assume that is the Krusty Krab hat. But at the end of the film, when they actually get to the warehouse where they are producing all of these films, it turns out it wasn't overseas, it was actually in a big warehouse, and they open up a shipment container which is containing a lot of these Frankenstein cartoon characters built together. And let's open up the scene here and let's have them run out. Yeah, there's a lot of references here from every cartoon you could think of. You've got Woody Woodpecker mixed with Casper the Ghost. You've got Apu there. You've got freaking Toucan Sam mixed with what looks like maybe a Iago. You have a Dipper Pines ripoff that you can see there from Gravity Falls. There's just so many going on here, but you'll notice one on the bottom right. It is almost identical to our man Patrick Star from SpongeBob. And I can't quite figure out who he is mixed with. If you guys have any ideas of who he's mixed with in this scene, let me know. The only thing I can really think of that looks kind of similar to this is the nerd, like actual mascot characters. They kind of give a similar vibe. It looks like Patrick, but with a nerd. And it's actually good to see Patrick survived out of the water with that merger, I guess. I mean, we've seen what happens to him outside of water typically. So that actually ends Rescue Rangers, and like I said, I wanted to bring that one in at the start because it's got the most direct references and it's very, very recent. But it doesn't stop there. There's some amazing ones throughout Disney, and we're even gonna do something special at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and dive into our next property. The next one actually comes from one of my favorite shows growing up, and that is The Replacements. And if you don't know what The Replacements is, I'm gonna go ahead and sing a little bit of the intro here. Todd and Riley were oh so sad till they came across the Plinko ad. He's got a super spy mom and a daredevil dad. I'm gonna spare you the rest of the song. I actually kind of forgot the lyrics after that part, and I know that was kind of hard to listen to. And also there was pictures of the characters and the opening title on screen the whole time. I didn't really need to sing it to remind you about it, but that, I kind of wanted to. One of the best theme songs ever on Disney Channel, and it's actually about two kids who are actually orphans, and they basically put out an ad to get back with their parents. But in the episode Running for Office, it's actually an episode about two competing to be class presidents, a classic trope and idea that they use in a lot of animated shows. But at the end of that episode, you can actually see a humanoid version of our favorite sea sponge appear.
I wasn't. This happens every year. Every stinking year.
Of course, having the square head, the iconic blue eyes, and the blonde hair in order to fill in that yellow look, and a very, very SpongeBob-esque outfit as well. And the hair is even kind of shaped in the same fashion as SpongeBob's body style, which I thought was a nice little detail and a very, very well-designed human version of SpongeBob. So the next one we're going to be talking about is from Phineas and Ferb, and it's actually not the one you're probably thinking about. This one may be a little bit of a stretch, but I think this is definitely a direct reference, and we're going to, of course, then talk about another one that they make in the show as well. But in the episode Phineas and the Ferb Busters, there is a scene where Dr. Doofenshmirtz is actually running away from a robot that he created that's kind of gone loose.
Prepare to meet your maker.
And when he's running away from the robot, at one point, it almost looks identical to a scene that we had in SpongeBob from the episode Crab Board, where we get to see a character on SpongeBob's television in the horror movie he was watching run away from the robot. And those scenes, if you put them side by side, they look like exactly the same. And if that's not enough to make you think that it's the reference, like I said, it may seem a stretch if you just go with that. But in the SpongeBob episode, the man that you see running in that scene is actually Dan Povenmire. And Dan Povenmire is also, let me get my conspiracy theorist hat on, is also the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb. Coincidence? I think maybe, but probably unlikely. What are the odds that the guy running is also the co-creator of the show, and he puts a scene in there identical to the scene that he made a physical appearance in SpongeBob? I don't know why I have this marker, but gotta listen to a guy waving around a marker. He knows what he's talking about. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Also in Phineas and Ferb, in the episode Summer Belongs to You, there's a scene where Phineas is seen digging under the sand, looking around, and he ends up finding a yellow sponge and a starfish, a pink starfish.
Look, a sponge and a starfish. There's gotta be something we can make out of this. Oh no, that's ridiculous.
You know what's ridiculous, Phineas? Is a guy with a triangle head and another guy with one eye bigger than the other with an ear on his neck having a summer that literally lasts forever. But like I said, I think that was just a little joke they threw in there because like I said, Dan Povenmire also worked on SpongeBob SquarePants, so I think it was just a little nod to some of the other stuff he did in his career. So the next one we're actually going to do is a little tangent off of Phineas and Ferb, and that is Milo Murphy's Law, also created by Dan Povenmire. And in one of the episodes of Milo Murphy's Law, they actually have an episode titled Fungus Among Us, which is the same name shared with the episode of SpongeBob called also Fungus Among Us. But again, I'm gonna add some more to that if that's not enough for you. They also have an appearance by the French narrator.
Intertemporal zoo, and all the judges turn up.
2 hours later.
Time for Dr. Zone.
So the next one we're bringing up here is from another Disney show, and that is Big City Green, a show about a bunch of yellow characters, which you know how much I am a fan of yellow characters. But I think this show would only be right to mention SpongeBob at one point. There's actually a clip from an episode where a character named Critter actually does his very own victory screech, which we're very familiar with if you're a SpongeBob fan.
Victory screech!
You're the man, Quickie Queen!
So this one actually comes from a show called Puka. Yes, it did air on Disney Channel. Although this show has actually been aired on different places, it has appeared on Disney Channel. And in Puka's love recipe, a character named Bruce is caught fishing, and he pulls something up that I think is indistinguishable. It is obviously our man Sponge.
Got one, over.
And he even has the tidy whities on. It is very, very straightforward. Of course, you don't get to see the face of the character, but there's no doubt in my mind that it was obviously meant to be SpongeBob. So it's nice to see that he made a little appearance in the Puka universe. So this next one I'm going to be mentioning is actually the only, I guess, besides the Chip and Dale reference, live action reference. But I couldn't leave this one out because it was one of Disney's biggest films of all time, and that is Avengers. And in Avengers Endgame at that, the biggest movie of all time, probably one of the most ambitious crossovers, as many have said, of all time as well. Also made a crossover with our main man who does his thing, Squidward.
Myself. After trespassing in this city and on this planet. It means get lost, Squidward.
So it's so freaking cool to see in one of the biggest movies of all time, in some ways the end of the superhero era. Of course they still make them now, but I mean that was the big, like, you know, cherry on top. Endgame, we got to see a reference to SpongeBob from the man himself, Tony Stark. So I couldn't leave that one out. Of course, you guys know the Avengers are owned by Disney. The entire Marvel roster is owned by Disney. So it's cool to see Squidward was mentioned, because Squidward and SpongeBob is so well known that even in a film that big, they can mention Squidward and a majority of the audience watching the movie is gonna understand who they're talking about. Okay, so now we are gonna actually not end it up completely. So we are gonna be doing something really fun here, and we are gonna be referencing, because with Disney, there was nowhere near as many as Cartoon Network or of course Nickelodeon, as I said. We're gonna be referencing the times that SpongeBob referenced Disney, which we did not do in the Cartoon Network video or the Nicktoons videos, which, believe it or not, there are references to Cartoon Network in some ways, or SpongeBob referencing other shows in very small ways. But Disney is so iconic. In some ways, it set the foundation for animation, and their movies are so iconic and part of pop culture that they can just be referenced in any form of media without even necessarily being thought of as a Disney reference, more as just a film reference. So let's talk about those. But before that, I want to mention The Simpsons. I completely steered clear of that in any of the other videos because The Simpsons is Fox. We did talk about Family Guy, King of the Hill, and a couple other things that aired on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network in the last video. So if you want to check out all the references in Family Guy, Cleveland Show, King of the Hill, go check out the Cartoon Network video. They appear at the end. And of course, I do know they are Fox properties, but they do appear on Adult Swim. But Simpsons has never appeared on Adult Swim from my knowledge, but Simpsons is owned now by the Walt Disney Corporation. So The Simpsons has mentioned SpongeBob an unbelievable amount of times. And as I mentioned at the Mad TV show that they had on Cartoon Network, there's so many references to SpongeBob that we could literally make a whole video on SpongeBob references in The Simpsons. I'm gonna have Ryan put a couple on screen right now. We're gonna have a couple examples play in the video right now so you guys can see some of the times SpongeBob was mentioned. But of course, reminder that Simpsons could definitely be pushing a little bit more into that PG-13 category, so the references could be a little bit more mature. So keeping that in mind, let's play a couple of those clips, and then we're gonna talk about the time SpongeBob referenced Disney.
Perhaps we should help.
Skriller.
Always loved cartoons, going way back to the real early SpongeBobs.
Even SpongeBob did it.
There's only a couple, and I just wanted to mention them just for the fun of it. In the episode where SpongeBob and Sandy are competing to see who's the ultimate kind of extreme games master, when Sandy is climbing up a mountain, SpongeBob catches up and passes her very quickly, floating in a very iconic way with an umbrella.
Too bad you forgot your umbrella. I did it.
Which of course is a reference to Mary Poppins. I don't really think that there was anybody who was flying around with umbrellas before Mary Poppins. Of course SpongeBob can do it because SpongeBob and Mary Poppins are similar in the way where they just bring so much joy to every environment they go into. And I think that that flight is powered by a pure of heart, and of course we know SpongeBob is one of the most pure-hearted and adorable characters of all time, so I think him being able to float with the umbrella only makes sense, really. And of course there is an episode called Patnocchio, which is an episode about Patrick essentially being Pinocchio.
I did not eat a hot air balloon for breakfast. Hey!
And if you don't know Pinocchio, it's probably the most horrific Disney movie of all time. Don't look into it too deep. That you just from start to finish is traumatizing. But I also watched it a lot growing up. But anyway, SpongeBob did reference Pinocchio with this episode and as a whole, basically. So I wanted to bring that up. And a very small one because you don't see SpongeBob reference a lot of stuff. It really doesn't as much as other stuff reference him. SpongeBob and Steven Hillenburg like to keep the universe very tied together besides the video games, comic books, and a couple other things. When you're talking about the show, it's self-contained within the ocean and the surrounding areas of Bikini Bottom. In the episode Lost and Found, which is an amazing episode filled with a bunch of Easter eggs, where SpongeBob visits the Lost and Found, you can see so many items from previous episodes of SpongeBob. One of the most well-known ones is that you can actually see Neptune's crown there, along with the Goofy Goober costumes from the SpongeBob movie. But in that same episode, you can see a bunch of toys on the shelf at a point, and one of those toys looks very, very, very much like the main man Yoda from Star Wars. And as we know also, Star Wars is Disney owned now, and I mean, as Disney buys more and more properties, I think these references and examples will only grow more and more. So who knows, maybe in a few years I'll have to update this video after Disney buys a couple more companies. But that was just a couple of the ones that I was able to find in SpongeBob, again referencing Disney. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button. A lot of research went into this video, a lot of editing went into this video to find all the clips and make sure it was as organized as possible for you beautiful people. Thank you so much for watching it. The next one I want to do, I mentioned that I wanted to do a live action version of this where we mentioned all the time SpongeBob was mentioned in live action, but I want to scrap that idea. Like I said, I want to focus on animated stuff and the stuff that we grew up on. And I think it's on the same note as that, being animated in its own form, but not just that being something we grew up on. I want to do next, if you guys want to see it, let me know in the comments down below. All the time SpongeBob appears or is referenced in video games. And if you guys thought that these were good, the Cartoon Network one, the Disney ones, some of the most direct and full-blown appearance type of stuff appears in video games. And I'm not even talking about the collaboration stuff. I'm talking about direct references or appearances using assets from SpongeBob into the video games. That video in itself would be long and a lot of fun to do. So if you guys want to see me do that, SpongeBob's appearances and references in video games throughout time, let me know in the comments down below. If you guys aren't already, go check us out on Patreon. It's the #1 way to support everything we're doing over here. You get an extended version of this video and every other video that we do. So go check us out on Patreon. Please, please, please go show some support over there. Keeps the lights and everything in the cavern moving. And don't forget that we're also on Whatnot 2 days out of the week, Wednesdays and Fridays. And you get $15 off your first purchase of anything over there, which many of the things you see in the background here you can find because Whatnot is only growing more and more with more sellers on there. And you get free $15 to add something to your collection or your house. So I would not miss out on that free $15. And again, subscribe if you're new here. I'll see you guys over here in this video that I know you're gonna love. And as always, Rep Pack, I will see you beautiful people in the next video. Adios. Bloop.